Hey, security peeps, we are live again with another episode of Breaking LinkedIn with Breaking Into Security, Cybersecurity, and the Hacker Valley studio. And I am Renee Small. I am a cybersecurity super recruiter, helping to recruit some fabulous people like these three gentlemen into the field and helping leaders get talent like these awesome guys next to me. So we will jump in a few minutes, but we actually broke LinkedIn. It's kind of fun. Chris, you want to start?
Yeah, how's it going? Oh, which one? We do this every time. Chris Foulon, go first.
Chris.
You go first. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Chris Foulon, Senior Security Researcher for GRIM, and Renee's extra special co-host on Breaking Into Cybersecurity. And they've blacklisted me from ever going on LinkedIn Live now. Chris Cochran, go ahead.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Chris Cochran from Hacker Valley Studio. Glad to be doing this. It's unfortunate we did have a change in some of the tech that we were using for LinkedIn Lives. They were only allowing one stream, and so we'll be broadcasting from Renee's stream for today. But yeah, looking forward to this conversation, and let's get to it. Over to Ron.
Yeah, thanks for having us again, Renee. You're truly the host this week, but at least we set out and completed our journey. We broke LinkedIn. I'm Ron Eddings, also co-host of Hacker Valley Studio, and looking forward to the conversation today.
Yes. So everyone, we set out to do what we set out. We did what we set out to do. Yeah. So we have 3.5 hackers here. I guess three and a quarter. And we actually broke LinkedIn. How crazy is that? So this is episode 7, which is unbelievable to me. We've been here for 4 weeks, every Friday, chatting, two podcast co-hosts, 4 podcast co-hosts, mashing up, talking about all different issues related to us during COVID-19. And our goal was to live stream all of our streams out into LinkedIn. Well, we got a notice that we can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So anyone that's on here now, for now, we will figure out another way to do it. So we hacked the system and it worked. We broke LinkedIn. I guess they're not happy with us. LinkedIn, please give us our stuff back. If anybody knows anybody at LinkedIn, can you hook us up? See, we're doing good work here. People like us, you know?
Yeah,
right?
I could see how it would get out of hand though. If you had like 20 influencers with like 100,000 apiece, and then they're just like broadcasting like across the entire LinkedIn like environment, I could see how it could get dicey.
Well, that's why we started doing it at 8, right?
Yeah, that's very, very true.
Yeah, because at noon I get 9, it gets really, really busy on LinkedIn Live.
Yeah.
So whoever, we need somebody on, we need to bring somebody from LinkedIn on the show. Who's going to be, who has some connections at LinkedIn that we could bring on here and put them on the hot seat?
Hey, let's go to the top. CEO of LinkedIn. Let's do it.
VP of security over there. We need the hookup. We need the hack. Oh, man. So today we are going to be chatting about the past, the current, and the future of this podcast series, and I guess podcasts altogether.
Yeah, and all of our podcasts. We have so many of them.
Right. We got so much going on. So, Chris, you came up with this awesome topic, so let's jump it off with you.
Yeah, so it's been such an amazing ride doing all this podcast stuff, and I knew it was going to be fun, but I don't think I realized how much Ron and I would actually take to it and put so much effort into producing good content, to getting great guests, and now it's become a bit of a side hustle for us. Originally we just did it, out of the love of our heart, the love of the community, the love of having good conversations, and now it's starting to take a much more serious turn because we're seeing the impact that it's having on people. So we're thinking, like, how do we scale this? How do we make it more impactful for people and for more people like across the globe? We just found out that we have listeners in 70 countries, which is insane to me. I talked to somebody from Singapore yesterday. It was like, oh yeah, I listened to your show and this, that, and the other. I was like, what? really? So yeah, all that stuff is fantastic. We find out if we won that award coming up here soon. And not only has it been great bringing people on our show, but other people have been bringing us on their shows. And so getting to connect with you guys and connect with other podcasters has been amazing because, number one, other, podcasters definitely have good audio. So it's tough sometimes when you get folks that try to talk through the laptop, just straight through the laptop. That's
like
that can
me.
be problematic. No, you got the headphones. You got you're a step up. You're a step up from, just talking directly into the laptop. But no, and for the future, we just really want to mature and grow it. Ron and I take our craft super seriously. So, we got a vocal coach. We've been working with a vocal coach for a few weeks now, and it's really paying dividends for me personally. I had some, I wouldn't say speech impediments, but definitely some speech challenges, like it just even in my daily life. And it's gotten so much better. And we're learning how to use this instrument that we have. And the future is, I think the sky's the limit. The thing that happened this week that was huge was the Joe Rogan deal with Spotify. Supposedly $100 million. They didn't release any actual details of the deal, but that's what people are thinking. It's about $100 million, and no information about how long that deal is or anything like that. But what that does is, I don't know if anyone's ever watched like Silicon Valley, the TV series. There was a portion in the series where it was like the main villain owns this big company, and then you have the hacker guys in the hacker house, and they ended up the villain ended up acquiring a company that was in competition with them just to spite them, basically, and he spent like a ridiculous amount of money. And one of the actors in the show is like sitting there and he's like cracking up laughing. They're like, "Why are you laughing? This isn't funny." He's like, he just set the price point. And what that means is that's how much a company is willing to pay for a persona and their content from podcasting. Mm-hmm. And so that is now the North Star for folks. And there was a prediction that within the next 5 to 10 years, that there is going to be a deal for $1 billion for a podcaster and their podcast content. So, really looking at the growth of podcasting across the world has been amazing. Being in this like perfect opportunity that we started before, like really all this money started dumping in. So we have all this content. You guys have all this content. And so it could be us. It could be us, Hacker Valley Studio or Breaking Into Cybersecurity. It could be,
why not?
Yeah, or both. Yeah,
maybe
a package deal
together.
So
I'll take a quarter of $1 billion. I'm good with that.
Yeah, we can split that. We can make that work. But no, I think it's really amazing. I think the sky's the limit for sure.
That is awesome.
That being said, where do you see your futures going?
I really want to make sure that we put our time in. I don't think anything's going to happen overnight. I mean, even to get to where we are took a year, right? And that's a year of diligent working every single week, sometimes every single day to get where we are. And so I think that if we want to even get close to, like a Joe Rogan status, we're just going to have to put even more time in, more deliberate practice, more intention into everything that we're doing with the podcast, just sharpening up those edges and just getting better. We have some projects we have working right now. Ron's got a really special project that he's been working on, which should be out here soon. And I think the sky's the limit for sure.
I agree. I think that, with everything going on, COVID and also even before COVID, we were putting in a lot of work, and I was seeing not only a change in the platform, but a change within myself. Kind of enjoying conversations a bit more. Like I've always loved great conversations, but now like I'm completely immersed into conversations and topics with really interesting people. And the longer that we do it, the more interesting our guests get. Like we get people reaching out to us, and we're still reaching out to potential guests, and kind of having a nice harmonious blend of people reaching out and us reaching out to people. We really get to have some great conversations with leaders and researchers, people that are talented, and share that back with the world.
I love that it took, well, two things. I saw the Joe Rogan news, And my new favorite person recently has been Gary Vee. Do you guys know
Yeah.
about Gary Vee? I know Gary
Oh
Vee.
yeah, Gary Vee's the man.
Yes.
Chris, do you know Gary Vee?
I do.
Okay, awesome. So for everyone who doesn't know Gary Vaynerchuk, he has this huge, he's invested in so many different companies. I think Twitter back in the day. I don't know if it was Facebook back before Facebook was Facebook, and then also huge into social media. And I heard this week he's been doing this Tea with Gary Vee thing, and it's actually been so inspirational. I hadn't listened to him. I got put onto him by a friend of mine, one of my best guy friends years ago, and listened to him on and off. But recently, during during COVID-19, he's been doing these Tea with Gary V's, and it's been so interesting. And he talked about Joe Rogan. Chris, to your point, what he said, is that Joe Rogan started this 11 years ago, 2009, with this podcast, and he predicted a year ago or so that Joe was going to get $100 million.
He said to Spotify.
Yeah.
I was like, gosh, on point.
Maybe. Is he in on the deal?
Maybe he knew something.
But it's fascinating to see. It's so funny because people, I think to both of your points, people reach out to me now asking us about the podcast and asking Chris and I about, what we've done. And ours, I call it rickety little podcast, nothing in comparison to what you guys have. But it's just such an interesting ride. And to see, I was even kind of looking deeper into podcasts versus radio shows. It's just so interesting as to how, he got to where he is. Obviously, he's the number one person on iTunes and everything else. And I'm so excited and proud for you all, for Hacker Valley Studio, Chris and Ron, to get us all to that point.
We're along for the ride.
So we have a ton of questions coming in. So first of all, Mary, I told Mary we missed her. And she has a connection over at LinkedIn. So she's reaching out to some people.
Hey.
Danette, we're coming. We need your help. So Mary's going to hook us up. Hubert says, hello, everyone. I don't know if this is a related topic. We take all topics, Hubert, related for today. But he wants to know how much it differs in terms of resume writing when applying to state or federal government cyber jobs. And the second question is, how should we prepare ourselves for the government cyber jobs, initial and face-to-face? So I know many of you have done federal. Both of you worked in the Chris and Ron? I know Chris did. Ron, did you work in?
I think everybody did here. I used to be a contractor.
Well, yeah. So you guys want to start or you want me to start?
Yeah, I'll start with the verbiage and structure is critical for government type contracts. They're looking for specific experiences because they rate based on that. They typically have a panel and they have to be more regimented about decisions so that they can't be questioned. So your resume almost has to be very cut and dry as to what you're looking for. And it could be as simple as 1 year of experience that's missing that will separate you from someone else. So if you don't have a clear way to show that you're meeting all of the minimum requirements, you'll be cut instantly.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's just like we were talking a few weeks ago, it might have been last week or the week before, we were talking about looking at job requirements and building your resume based off of requirements that are listed in a job. I think for government agencies, it's even more important to do that. You have to really make sure that you have all of those bullet points, because when they're submitting proposals, they have to prove that they have the capabilities to deliver that body of work. So I think the really important part is copying and pasting from the requirement and then rewording it, but really making sure that you also have the capabilities to do that task or that skill. But I would start with copying and pasting and rewording.
Yeah, and then also make sure you include the technologies that you work with, and include variations of the way that word is displayed, like whether it's an acronym or completely spelled out all the way. Make sure you include both, because sometimes those folks that are going through the resumes, they're doing like a word search, and so they're looking for particular people with experience with particular technologies, and I think that'll help you get your foot in the door as well.
The other thing to also remember for U.S. jobs, they tend to have questionnaires in addition to asking you for a resume. So you have to ensure that what you say in the questionnaire lines up with your resume, because it's the questionnaire that's likely to get you kicked out versus the resume.
Now, if you're going the government contractor route, which is sometimes a much easier route, the couple things that that I see that people tend to, when you're looking at corporations and commercial work, the resume should be 2 pages. I mean, the resume technically should be about 2 pages anyway. Anytime it gets longer than that, it gets real problematic. But you want to try to format it, even like I've worked with people with on the margins, making sure it's like minimal margins, the font and everything, so that you can squeeze in all that data that both Chris's and Ron talked about. A couple things that are really typically come up and people have challenges is the certifications. So, make sure that's kind of like at the top, because a lot of the government roles, definitely you will need a cert. And then education. So those are the two things that I see ding people out, like out of the gate. Obviously, if you have a clearance, that's fantastic too, for roles that need clearance. And just so you know, I'm actually going to be talking to the folks at the Department of Homeland Security in a couple of weeks with their talent team, some folks over there. So I'm excited to be talking to them too. So I'll be able to learn more about that and bring some data back, because they're coming out with a new system specifically for cybersecurity jobs, to streamline that process. So the way USA Gov's right now, usajobs.gov is so complicated to get into, and such a, it could become really cumbersome. From what I understand, the new system is specifically in the cybersecurity space to ensure that they are getting some talent. And I think this will really help people who are trying to break into the industry, especially in the US. If you're if you're trying to break in, there are a number of roles there. And so the government is trying to help get people in easily. So that should be helpful. That's going to be in a couple of weeks at the beginning of June.
Yeah, fantastic. We just got another question, and we could apply this to both. It says from Ravit, what types of cybersecurity topics do you guys entertain for Hacker Valley Studio? And then also we could apply that to yours as well. So on the Hacker Valley Studio side, we really sit on the fringes of cybersecurity. So we do talk about programs, like how do you develop AppSec program, how do you develop threat hunting, threat intelligence, how do you optimize those things, how do you have conversations with folks on the board, stuff like that. But then we also have other topics that are on the fringes, like I was saying, like mindfulness, fitness, productivity, leadership. All these things that make the cybersecurity professional whole is the stuff that we really focus on. So we get to play around a little bit with some of those topics.
Yeah, we just had Nick VGA on the podcast. That's going to be coming out soon. But he's an expert in cybersecurity, but also an expert in business. Like he's a CXO. He just wears so many hats. So to hear kind of not only his background, his experience in cybersecurity, but also hear how he keeps his head on, dealing with multiple organizations as an advisor.
Yeah, and we also, and just this past week, we had the author of The Genius Habit on, Laura, on the podcast, and she has almost nothing to do with cybersecurity, but the information that she has is useful for cybersecurity practitioners.
And I would say for breaking into cybersecurity, initially we started with interviewing individuals just breaking into the field, sharing their experiences, sharing their tips and tricks. we evolved into having senior leaders come on, sharing what they're looking for in hires and what they would recommend to those looking to break in. But with COVID, Renee's evolved it even more to cover a wider range of topics.
Yeah, so we started doing super recruiters, really helping people from what we're seeing on the recruitment side, because a couple of things that we saw is people getting really discouraged. I mean, people are discouraged as a whole when they're trying to break in. And obviously right now it could really get discouraging. So we do super recruiters. We try to do it try to do it on Wednesdays, but it can get tricky, one with my kids and just life. So we didn't get it done this Wednesday. Back to next Wednesday though. Leighton, you're on the pod, you're here, so next Wednesday. But anyway, 4 of us or a couple of us try to get together and talk about recruiting topics or what we're seeing as recruiters. So letting people know that there is hope, there are opportunities, people are getting hired. All of us recruiters are actually actively hiring right now. I'm in the middle of putting together 2 offers as we speak. So, just working on letting people know like the reality of things that are happening today and making them aware, keeping the spirits up, like, hey, this is what we're seeing. These are some of the challenges. We had a couple episodes where we talked about video interviewing and how to keep, what you should do in terms of your background and not have a lot of things going on behind you. We talked about resumes, and I think I'm trying to do a resume, like a live resume workshop, because I think that will really help every single week. 3 times a week we get questions about resumes.
Right.
So it'd be fun to do some resume. I think about a year and a half ago, I did a resume. It was live via StreamYard. No, not StreamYard, sorry. Another platform we used to use, Crowdcast, before I got LinkedIn Live, and we kind of like flipped somebody's resume live.
Oh.
And it was pretty cool. It was fun. So doing something like that. And then on Mondays we do Dr. Dan Schaefer, who is a psychologist. He has worked with and a performance coach. So he's worked with CEOs of major corporations, as well as entrepreneurs and professional athletes. And he is here to kind of walk us through, again, the issues and challenges we're dealing with in the middle of COVID-19. He's been around. Dr. Dan he's awesome. He's been around for many of these challenging times that we've been in. 2011, he goes all the way back, all of the different recessions and what have you. And he's worked with folks and helped to get people through trying times like this, when you have people passing away, when you have so many things going on at once and you're in like a black swan event like this.
Yeah.
So we've expanded to that, and it's been phenomenal. I mean, being here, getting to people who we typically probably would not have been able to get to as quickly has been great. So if you have a topic, and feel free to raise your topics up, and I think between Breaking Into Cyber and Hacker Valley Studio, we'll get it done.
Yep. Absolutely. And what about the future of breaking into cybersecurity? Where are you guys headed?
Well, one of the things that we're working on right now, is trying to get more what we've learned in the past 2 years or so is that, year and a half, oh my God, it's going to be 2 years. In almost 2 years, a lot of the folks that we interviewed in the beginning have moved up. So they got promotions and moved into management and all that stuff. So the next step is really kind of breaking into Cyber 2.0. Like, we want to bring on more leaders. Like, how do you move up? So more of bringing in, we started doing it like sporadically, but bringing more leadership in to talk about how, if you're a senior analyst or if you're, one level down, like, how do you get to the CISO level? How do you move up?
Yep.
How do you get up the chain? So that's the work that I'm working on right now.
Very cool.
That's awesome. And we're kind of seeing the same thing. We've interviewed guests, and luckily most of the time we've gotten out the episodes in time, but there's so many opportunities. So you might have an episode one day, and then the next day, that person that you brought on is is moved on to a better opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we look at the future of our podcast, it's pretty amazing to see the opportunity. Right now we're doing video stuff. Like we started doing videos with our podcast. It went very well, but it didn't scale because some of our guests and were remote. So now we're building up these new capabilities by using tools like OBS, now StreamYard. I just got a new piece of software like Chris was talking about. So maybe there will be more videos in the future of Hacker Valley Studio.
He let the cat out of the bag.
We said maybe.
More videos. So we have a lot more. I want to shout some people out because we've had people that join up all the time. So Terrence Burns, Arun Thomas, Leighton, Charles Karanja, Jordan, Mary, Lauren Provo. Oh, Lauren is here. We had interviewed Lauren. Is that the same Lauren that you interviewed? Lauren Provost?
No, it was a different Lauren.
Oh, okay. Different Lauren. Hi, Lauren. I just thought about Lauren this week. She's awesome. She teaches. She's a PhD with I think her PhD is in math, and then she also has a cybersecurity background, and she teaches some amazing things. And she's been on our show. And so, couple questions. And then Hubert and George Sprague is back. Tyrone says, "Morning, Fantastic Four." Suresh wants to know, is CISSP covered for blockchain? I don't think so. You all may know better than me. I have no idea.
Those are so CISSP covers a wide range of security topics. Blockchain is a type of technology that allows transparency in validating transactions. So it's not necessarily a security topic. So I think the individual just needs to clarify what you're looking to accomplish in combining those topics.
I think that the CISSP now covers more cloud topics. From my last kind of time glancing over the book, which was around December, I don't recall seeing any specific blockchain security practices there, but they did mention blockchain, but I don't think that there was a full chapter on the topic though.
Yeah. They mentioned blockchain even back in 2017 in regards to something you should be aware of, but it wasn't something that came up, at least in my version, in the exam either. And that's the other thing. The CISSP tends to be a mile wide and just an inch deep. So you'll end up covering a lot of topics, but you just have to keep in mind with how those topics relate to security and your role as an information security professional trying to solve those topics.
I would imagine that ISC Squared would love to have kind of a track on blockchain. They have a track on cloud specifically. So they have the CCSP, which is like the CISSP, but for specifically cloud. So I would, whoever's listening in, hopefully you have some ideas and you write the book. I would love to learn more about being a security professional, but dealing with blockchain.
Cool. More comments. Leighton. So Ravit Jane, Chris, he loves you too. Chris and Ron.
We love him too.
Show us
Thank
some
you.
love too. Thank you. But he says he thanks Chris and Ronald for what you're doing for the community. So awesome stuff. Leighton has tons of help desk opportunities. So if anyone here knows that Leighton Holcomb, he is hiring a ton of help desk roles. So please reach out to him. Kyle Griffith said Dr. Dan is awesome. I know he's awesome. Yes, he's really awesome. Mark Ward is looking for an opportunity. He said, hire Mark. So Mark, we're going to check you out and see how we can get you, with the rest of our network here. Coover Chinoy says hi. Marilyn Mose is very nice. So Alan Alford is here.
Alan Alford, my brother.
Hey, our friend. So we have some great people on here today, checking us out, and we are excited once again to be here. So what else are we talking about? all the questions I think have been answered. Leighton says blockchain is not cyber necessarily.
I have a question for you guys. What brings you the most satisfaction about doing the podcast and producing content?
So I love hearing people's stories, and everything about all of your story. Every time I hear a story, Chris, to your point earlier, Chris Cochran, like you listen to these people's stories, and Ron, I think you said this, you listen to stories and you get more and more excited, or you get so involved and so into the person's story. I've just naturally been like that. It's so fascinating to me to hear like how people got to where they are in their careers, what they do, what makes them tick, what are their drivers. And especially when we talk to folks who, especially the ones who've broken in and they have such perseverance, like Charles Karanja, for example. I'm remembering him coming on our podcast. He was the first person and talked about how he applied to 200 jobs and, he had 35, and I think it was, 30 something interviews. And just hearing, his what led him to security, what he's doing in security. I just remember, I remember his story vividly. I remember that he talks about his wife telling him, go for it, all these different things that make a person whole. That is just so fascinating and interesting to me. That's one part. Secondly, it's awesome to be able to meet everyone like you and hopefully put you all into opportunities. Every time I get to place somebody in a role, I feel like I get a new job. So It's just exciting in that way. So those are the two things that really, really drive me on my side. And then helping people. Like the whole goal of doing Breaking Into Cyber is because Chris and I kept getting so many people reaching out to us, begging us to break in, which was kind of mind-numbing to me and mind-boggling that we have all these millions of open positions and you have all these people on the other side trying to break in. So trying to figure out how to hack that, like doing our little piece to try to share with people on who just did it, how people are doing it now, is something that continues to drive us. So that's on my side. Chris?
So for me, it's hearing from people that have watched the show and how much they appreciate it and how much they learned. I appreciate that because I love helping people. And then the other thing is I feel like I learn just as much from our guests than they do from us or from the way our listeners learn from them, because I'm always finding new creative ways to do things or think about things, especially from you two. I've learned so much from having you two on for the past 6 or 7 episodes. That's what makes all this worth it to me. It's really just learning from the guests that we have and then seeing that the guests have a positive impact on our listeners.
Yeah.
I think that for me,
go ahead, Ron.
I was just going to say for me, I've been particularly loving the live streams, the engagement, the questions, also the leaders and experts that are in the comments sharing their opinion too. It's amazing.
Yeah.
There we gotta get this whole live stream thing figured out.
We're coming. We're gonna hack it again. So Alan, there's tons of comments coming through. So let's see. Christopher Sant says, "Hey all from Australia." So we got some folks from Australia.
Chris Sant.
Charles Karanja, so sweet. You are all an inspiring group who are both individually and as a group helping us develop to be better professionals. Soar higher. Aw. And Alan Alfred says what Charles said. So sweet. Other folks, Husna says, thank you for hosting this podcast. As a beginner in the cyber field, it's so fun to listen and observe the variety of information. Please keep it up. And let's see. Oh, Alan makes such a good point. Everyone in cyber, regardless of where they are, unless they literally started 3 months ago, should have a mentor and a mentee. We pull each other up. Alan, that is so true.
I think the
Nobody-
mentee part is often undercredited. I think that there's not enough mentors, especially the people that have the knowledge, the skills. I think it's so vital to have a mentee because literally you get to learn it twice, all the content.
And as a mentee, what I love about mentees is, especially mentees that are like, I really enjoy the young people. Like, I'm working with some high school students, and just learning about what are you into now? What are they into? What are they focused on? What are college grads, like, what's interesting about security to you? How do you get involved? How do you break in? Because one of the things that whenever I hear about talent, so that's my space. Oh, there's a ton of people that say young people don't know anything about security, like how they grow up. You grow up and you say, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a nurse, I want to be an attorney, I want to be, whatever you want to be. A cybersecurity person isn't on that list because they may not necessarily know what that means. So the ones that do figure it out, I'm curious to learn how they did, how'd you learn about it, what and what makes you interested in it, and what have you. And then I always want to know, like, what are they up to? What social media are they into? What are they doing? And just learning from them. So having mentees just as a whole is fantastic because I learned so much. I learned a ton from mentee. One of my favorite mentees, he's taught me so much. So Tyrone said he has a man crush going on. Oh, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
I was gonna say, with regards to mentor mentees, the mentor has to be open for that reverse feedback. Sometimes you have mentors that feel like all they have to do is give, and the relationships usually aren't as good as when there's a give and take from both of them in the relationship. And I love that type of relationship. I've had some in the past where all they wanted to do is give, and eventually it felt like we were disconnected in what the goals of the mentor-mentee relationship were. So yeah, my 2 cents.
Cool. So Tyrone says he has a man crush going on too. He appreciates our collaboration and important insight being shared with the community. So tons of good stuff today. I'm looking for questions though in this mix. Okay.
I have a question for the Chris's.
Oh,
the 2 Chris's. We're talking about podcasting a little bit. If someone were to start both of the podcasts, Hacker Valley Studio or Breaking Into Cybersecurity, which episode would you refer this current audience to?
Oh man, that's a good question. Woo!
For this audience, the LinkedIn, we're breaking LinkedIn. Which episode should they watch on each podcast?
You go first, Chris.
That's a hard one because I think there's fundamentally 2 different approaches to things. I love the Hacker Valley Studio specifically for the diversity of topics. They're not necessarily solely cybersecurity focused, but you blend in just enough to keep that edge there. And you bring so many different guests on, whereas I think our podcast up until recently has solely been focused on that one purpose of breaking in and evolving within your career. So it's been more career focused and less about your whole self. So I think it depends on what that individual is looking to achieve. Are they looking for overall self-improvement? Hacker Valley Studio. Are they looking for career improvement? And I'd tell them to come listen to us.
I think he was asking about episode. Yeah,
which episode for Breaking In?
Yeah, like would you ask them to start with?
I would say start with the beginning. I mean, yeah, start with the beginning and move on, because each story is uniquely different, but they form a methodology that evolves throughout the time, because it also shows our improvement as hosts, asking the right types of questions and trying to get down to those valuable insights that each guest provides. But it also shows the different guests as they evolve from those that were just breaking in to when we started having security leaders on to now we have psychologists and recruiters and different types of guests on, including yourselves. So I would say start from the beginning. That's the best way.
Yeah. So for ours, I think there's like two eras almost. I wouldn't say go with our number one episode. I mean, there was so much growth has happened since then, and I'm afraid people listen to number one and be like, nope, not subscribing.
It was good. It was good. I personally
I'm going to number one now.
Yeah.
It was good, but we've grown so much since then. I would say the old school episodes. I would listen to Charles Nuatu's episode. What was that, number 7, Ron?
Yeah. Number 7.
I think from 7 or 8, you guys started like finally honing it in.
Yeah. Start with that one if you want to go to our older stuff. Some of our newer stuff, I would say three. There are 3 that you could probably check out. The David Bittner one was an outstanding episode. It's episode 62. Dave, he's such an awesome, super humble guy, but really a powerhouse when it comes to podcasting. Another one I would check out if you're more interested in the cyber side of the house is the episode 65 with John Kindervag. He's the godfather of Zero Trust. Super awesome episode. And I would also say one of our more fun episodes was Jack Resider from Darknet Diaries. What episode was that? So people know. Episode 43. He's just a phenomenal podcaster altogether. So I would check those out, and maybe not in those order, just kind of whatever one kind of floats your boat. Check it out. But yeah, we have so many more coming. So many more. We have like 15 in the pipe right now, and we're just trying to figure out how to get them out in a timely manner.
if we're gonna call out specific episodes, we had one with Alan Alford, one with Chris Cochran, one with Jeff Mann. Then we also had one with Ty Sabano, and then Ron Gula, yeah. And then Brian Hagley. So we've had lots of a good mixture of guests, but yeah. So those would be some of the more memorable ones to me, specifically because I'm further along in my career. So I found that their advice hit my heart.
Nice.
I really like the ones in the beginning. I really like the ones of people who've broken in. So yeah. I think those are super, super helpful from a breaking into cyber perspective. So like Charles Karanja, he was our first, and then he came back on again. And then other people who had broken in, because what those provide is the exact steps that those people took so recently to break into the field. And some of the challenges and some of the things that we have heard over and over again is they get this advice from like ages ago. So if people, like all 3 of you had broken in, years ago, and sometimes, and people who broken in even further behind, longer than that, would give this advice that was dated.
Yeah. Right.
And so we wanted to just provide the folks that are breaking in. So if you're trying to get into the industry right now, what do I do? Like, go listen to what Charles did. Go listen to what some of these other people did on the podcast, because the ones that really just recently broke in can tell you about places where they did things that they did that I would have never even thought of, as to how to get into the industry. So those are, to me, from my perspective, specifically for the people trying to break in, I think that's just so valuable.
Like some of those individuals would be like Kat Murdoch, Amanda Berlin. Then we also had Tracy Mayleaf.
Ooh, nice one.
And then Gabrielle Hempel. Some of those individuals have progressed so drastically since they've been on. It's been great to watch their career grow.
Yeah.
Right. In 18 months, Gabby went from like brand newbie to now she's an expert on GrimCon giving presentations.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's phenomenal to watch. You see people soar in their careers so quickly and trying to hack their, like figure out what did they do? What are these people doing that is making them A, get into the field, and then B, like soar so quickly. So that's what's interesting on our side. Those are the ones to watch. Tons of comments, Ron.
Yes. I love the fact that you guys have the stories on the new just broken in. I just wanted to throw that out. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a space that I think that when you're already in, you forget or you remember how you broke in, but from 2015 or 2011 or whatever year it was to now is so completely different. Like, I'm really curious about the people breaking in right now in the middle of the pandemic. Like, that's who I really, really want to speak to. Like, okay, what are you doing today? What's happening right now? Like, because now a lot of our guests said they go to conferences. Well, they're virtual now. And they do all of these different things. And I'm really curious to hear from people who are breaking in like right this second, and what they're doing, how they're doing that. So it'll be interesting, like the next couple episodes of Breaking Into Security, where we actually find people who are breaking in like right now.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, I know we're getting close on time. I'd love to hear, if I had a magic wand for everybody here, what would you change about, or what would you improve or just scale about your podcast today, if I can make that happen?
I would have gotten Renee using a better mic from the beginning.
Dang, shots fired.
She knows it too. She's bought it off
quite often.
She's bought it, and it was boxed on her desk for many months, and she still doesn't use it.
Wow.
I tried multiple times.
Room for improvement.
I thought he was going to say something sweet like, I wish I would have met Renee sooner so we would have much more episodes together. He's like, I wish Renee would have got a better microphone a long time ago.
That's how you know we are true friends.
I call it like it is.
He tells me off every time. Why do we have a logo? Why do we have this? Why are you doing that? I love it.
Well, you have the logo now. I like the logo.
I know. I'm going to put the logo up real quick. We have a logo now, too. Let's take down a little. We got.
Hey.
We even have a COVID one, too.
We got one with masks and everything. We got to get that one up. So he tells me professionalize our podcast. What would I have? What would I have done sooner?
Or not even sooner. Like, what would you change about it right now? Like, if, like, giving you all powers, Magic Genie, you can make one wish about your podcast right now. What would that wish be?
I would love to edit some of the original ones. Magic Genie right now is to have someone come in and hook me up like the Hacker Valley studio hook up my mic, hook up my headphones, hook up my camera. I have a camera that's coming, just to step it up. You guys, putting us to shame. So you got to make sure I keep close on your tail, on your heels.
Yeah. I would also like more guests. Yeah, more guests, because sometimes we struggle. Like, as many people appreciate it, not as many people want to come on and share their story. So call out there for more guests to come on.
Yeah, there you go.
And more newer guests.
There's a lot of students on the stream.
Yeah,
breaking their way in.
Right. We want to hear from students. Maybe we'll get a panel of students. We want to hear from the people right now that are doing it. So that's definitely, I agree with you, Chris, on that one.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Ron?
Looking at the future and having a magic wand, post-production, I think that we're getting better and better every day with post-production, but it's still a task. It's still something that's not just speaking to, you know, great individuals. So if I had a magic wand, we would have some magical software that would do our transcripts and edit the video, remove all the unnecessary parts and pauses, and then post it for us also. But I think that, you know, we're getting there. That there's streamlined approaches that we can take, and it's just a process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you want to give the shout outs on the comments? I know that there's been a ton coming in, Renee.
I know, but I want to make sure do we have time? Because I know we got to wrap soon.
Yep.
We got to get back to our day jobs. You got a minute? Okay,
Yep.
So Lotta, Stewart, Gentry, Alan Alfred, all of our buddies are here today. It's so much fun. Somebody had a question and I just had it up. Oh, Alan Alfred said, make sure you check out Defense in Depth. So that's another.
Absolutely.
Plug for this podcast right there.
Plug it in, Alan. I love it. Nancy talks about there's a blockchain security certification offered for whoever was asking about blockchain, offered by the Blockchain Training Alliance. So, you know, that's some valuable information. Hubert said, honestly, this is a place where I can throw the question no matter what and get a reliable answer. How awesome.
Love it.
That's awesome.
Should we end on that one?
We got to.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's just too good to pass up. And Alan says he was a hacker kid when War Games came out. So tons of just cool, awesome stuff going on. And are we going to be on next week?
I think we're going to take a little bit of a hiatus. I got some stuff going on my side of the house, and but we're going to figure out this LinkedIn thing. LinkedIn, if you're listening, help us out. But yeah, we'll be back soon.
Yeah, or maybe we'll just do it with Ron.
Yeah, there you go.
Ron and another guest.
Yep.
I mean, people
Well,
only want
we
Ron
have-
anyways. The
we
only
have
reason
one.
I'm here is because Ron's here.
Looks like we have one right next to Chris. So
We have another co-host.
yeah.
All right, folks. We will see you all soon. Hopefully next Friday with Ron while Chris does some cool things out there. And thank you again for joining our episode. And we will see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.